Okay, everyone, so welcome back again, and we are going to carry on with the Anapanasati Sutta, and yesterday we had a look at the very beginning of the sutta, and it talks about how the mindfulness of breathing takes you all the way to the end of the path. So if you want to become an arahant, then Anapanasati is good. And if you don't want to become an arahant, but you want to become a sotapanna, Anapanasati is good. If you want to attain samadhi, Anapanasati is good. If you want vipassana and insight, Anapanasati is good. So it's good for everything, basically. All the way, it fulfills all the important aspects of the Buddhist path, which is great. So we shall just carry on with this, and as I mentioned yesterday, we will go into a little bit of detail because it is, I reckon, maybe the main instruction on meditation that you find in the suttas, the Anapanasati Bhavana. So we're going to start with the little introductory passage, and one of the things that is kind of obvious in a sense when you read a sutta like this is that often the introductory passage may be the most important one of all. And the reason for that is because the meditation is very much an automatic process. One of the biggest mistakes that we do in meditation is try to do the meditation rather than allow the meditation to happen. We will see that as we move on, especially with the next sutta. It talks about how this is automatic, and by trying to do it, we are kind of trying to go against nature. The idea with meditation is allow nature to take its course, to allow things to settle in a natural way. When we allow things to settle, it is almost like the mind's inclination to become peaceful. It's like the mind wants that already, and so we don't have to do anything, we just have to allow it to settle down. However, for that to work, we need to kind of have the right starting point. So the beginning of the Anapanasati is to establish the starting point so that this natural process is allowed to happen. If you don't have the right starting point, the process is not going to work. And this is kind of the critical thing. And this is some of the things I talked about here on the first day, the first morning. That was yesterday morning. Okay, yesterday morning. So some of those things are going to basically come up again as we look at this now. So, let's see what the Buddha has to say here. And after saying that this fulfills knowledge and freedom, he then says, and how is mindfulness of breathing developed and cultivated to be very fruitful and beneficial? It's when a mendicant gone to a wilderness, to the root of a tree, or to an empty hut, sits down cross-legged, sets their body straight, and establishes mindfulness in front of them. Just mindful, they breathe in, mindful, they breathe out. So this is the introductory passage, and so this is what we have to get right for the kind of whole meditation to work. So remember, for it to be very fruitful and beneficial, this is part of that which makes it very fruitful and beneficial. If we don't get this right, it will not be very fruitful and beneficial. In other words, we have to get the basic attitude, the basic inclination of the mind. All of these things have to be in place, and then the thing sort of happens from there. So it starts off by saying a mendicant. So a mendicant is a monastic, a bhikkhu or a bhikkhuni. And so what this means is that this is a difficult practice for lay people to do in the same way, because as a monastic you have more suitable circumstances usually than you have as a lay person. So it's more difficult. It doesn't mean it is impossible. And of course, when we come to a place like this, we take ourselves away from our ordinary circumstances, it increases our ability to lean the mind in this sort of direction. But it's interesting that it starts off with a monastic. This should not be understood as exclusively for monastics. Remember the way the Buddha speaks, and I don't know what the idiom is in Sinhala language. I don't really know any Sinhala, unfortunately. That would be very nice to know some Sinhala, but I don't. In the ancient Indian languages, in Pali or the way the Buddha spoke, when you speak to somebody, you always speak to the most senior people present. So when the Buddha says bhikkhus, actually everyone is included in that usually. So mendicants is not an exclusive thing, but it shows that this is a tendency towards monastic life, maybe, than towards lay life. And this becomes even more obvious when you look at the next phrase here. Gone to the wilderness, aranyagato, gone to the foot of a tree or the root of a tree, rukamula gato, or gone to an empty hut, sunyagara gato. And what this means is that meditation practice is something that happens usually in solitude. And this says something about the profundity of this sort of meditation. It is not a simple, ordinary thing. It is very profound, and it is something that, where you actually are withdrawing from the world in a sense. The mind is withdrawing from the world. You want to go beyond the ordinary worldly things. If you go to the Satipatthana Sutta, it says Vinaya Loke Abhijja Domanasa, which means that you have given up Loke Abhijja and Domanasa. Loke Abhijja is basically Kama Chanda. It is the interest in the five senses. And Domanasa is the aversion of the mind, or the negativity of the mind. Do manasa, bad mind, quite literally. And so this is what we do when we extract ourselves from the world. This is how profound mindfulness of breathing is. So if you don't have any success with the mindfulness of breathing, or you find it difficult, you find the mind is not leaning or going in that direction, you should not be too surprised. It is not really meant to be for anybody. Someone has to be really committed on the path to be able to do this. Yes, there are some lay people who are really, really committed, and it's very wonderful to see that, and certainly it can be done. I don't want to discourage you. I just want to say that if it doesn't work, you should not be surprised. And even for monastics, it may take a while before these things really kind of take off and they come together properly. They happen in seclusion, and these are secluded places. So gone to the wilderness, aranya, so this means like anywhere outside of inhabited areas is aranya. And one of the things I love about Sri Lanka, still a lot of aranya in Sri Lanka, in non-inhabited areas, maybe getting less, like everywhere else in the world. We're trying our best to destroy all the wilderness. And unfortunately, sometimes we are succeeding just a little bit too much. In places like Thailand, very difficult to find wilderness these days because basically everything is being used for other purposes. So it's beautiful to find these places. I remember visiting Ajahn Nisarana when he was down in Tanjantena, and he's not staying there anymore, but he used to stay there. Beautiful place in the jungle, in the forest. It has a very nice feel to it. You get this feeling of being removed from society. And the idea, of course, that we find in the suttas everywhere, you have this twofold kind of seclusion, which is the kaya viveka and the chitta viveka. And to be able to get the chitta viveka, and what is the chitta viveka? Well, the chitta viveka is the seclusion from the five senses and the five hindrances. In the formula to the first jhana, you have vivicheva kamehi, vivicheva akusalehi damehi, which means you have vivicheva kamehi, secluded from the five senses. Vivicha akusalehi damehi, secluded from unwholesome qualities, which basically means the five hindrances. And so that is the seclusion of the mind. And to be able to have that seclusion of the mind, first of all, you need the seclusion of the body. You take yourself out of that world, out of the things that remind you of the five senses, remind you of all the problems and things, and that gives the mind a chance to also seclude itself from these things. aranya gato, gone to a wilderness. Rukamula gato, gone to the foot of a tree or the root of a tree. You have these beautiful large trees that you have here in the tropics, which provide shelter. It's almost like a kuti when you go to the shelter at the root of a tree. Or sunyagara gato. Sunyagara means literally empty house or an empty dwelling. Gone to an empty house. And these are the kutis that monastics usually have. This is why monastics often have individual kutis, often spread apart, because it gives you that sunyagara gato. So this says something about the profundity again of this meditation. It happens in seclusion. And the reason is because we're trying to develop the mind into these very states that are so different from the ordinary world. This is kind of the point here. So this is what happens, and then you sit down. So Anapanasati is a meditation that happens when you sit down. And so sitting down gives you that stability. If you are walking, etc., it's very difficult to do Anapanasati. It is not usually recommended, especially to go deep. It's going to be very, very hard. So sitting down is probably the best kind of posture. So it's a sitting down meditation, not a walking meditation. Some people say you can meditate lying down, and maybe sometimes you can. But sometimes it just is a bit dangerous because your mindfulness may drift a little bit if you lie down. So sitting is the ideal posture. Sitting cross-legged, palankang abhujitva is the Pali. Palankang is the cross-legged posture. And if you can sit cross-legged, it is great. If you have that ability, not everyone has that ability. When you get older, or if you are grown up sitting on a chair, always sitting on a chair, it can be very difficult to sit cross-legged. So you don't have to be cross-legged. It doesn't mean that you are blocked from enlightenment if you're not sitting cross-legged. Some people will say that, but actually I think that's not quite right. And I know people sitting on chairs who get very good meditation while sitting on a chair. So please sit on a chair. Please lean on something, do what it takes to make sure the body is comfortable. The main point is that the body is comfortable. That is the idea here. And I think in ancient India, that was the comfortable posture, sitting cross-legged. This is what everyone did. So that was, people were at ease with that particular way of sitting. These days it's a little bit different. So you do what it takes to be comfortable. The idea is to get the body out of the way. If you indulge the body is important. If you feel pain in the body is important. It's important because the mind goes there. The mind is interested. Either it's interested because it is pleasurable, or it is interested because it is painful. It wants to get rid of the pain. So the ideal is a middle way, where you don't torture yourself and you don't indulge. The body becomes unimportant. It's a very important point because too many people in Buddhism, they torture themselves. Please don't be a self-torturer. There's enough problems in the world. We don't have to add to the problems. Anyone here who hasn't got enough problems already? Okay, I thought so. That's usually the way it is. So you sit down cross-legged or whatever posture is comfortable for you. And you can change your posture if you like, sometimes sitting on a chair, sometimes sitting cross-legged. Whatever works, whatever you are at ease. Otherwise, you will lose your interest in meditation if you don't do that. So then we have sets the body straight, ujjukaya panidaya. That means that your mindfulness improves when your body is reasonably straight. You can kind of feel that when you straighten up, you feel that you become more alert. But again, this is a matter of time and place. Sometimes when you sit down, initially you may be tired, the body may not feel very good, your mind may be a bit clouded or whatever, and then just relax to begin with. Lean back and then allow yourself just to relax and relax. And when the mind starts to clarify and become clear, that is when you sit up really straight, because then it will have a powerful effect on the mind. But if the mind is not ready and you try to sit straight, usually it just leads to more dukkha and more problems and tension, etc., these kind of things. So be wise about this. You have the wisdom of the practice is that you want to move towards ease, to being comfortable. Not indulging, but comfortable. And if you are comfortable, you know that you are on the right track. So go slowly. Do this with wisdom. Otherwise, it's not going to work properly. So ujjukaya panidaya, setting the body straight. And then comes the most important one of all. You establish mindfulness in front of you. Satting parimukkhang upatapetva. And this is the most important thing of all. And all of these other things really point towards this idea of establishing mindfulness in front of you, parimukkhang. And when mindfulness is established, meditation tends to be quite easy. It is no problem anymore. The breath is there, you are there, and you are aware of what is present, and the breath meditation happens pretty much by itself. Because the mindfulness is there. You are mindful, it means that you are aware, it means that you are here and now, and that makes the meditation happen by itself. So this is really important. So how do we establish that mindfulness? And these are some of the things I talked about yesterday. The idea of just going slowly, the idea of letting go of things. A lot of the time we are involved with the world, and because we are involved with the world, the mind does not become peaceful. And there's two main ways of becoming involved with the world. And the worst way of being involved with the world is if you are upset about something. If you have a bit of ill will, there's a bit of vyapada there, then it is really problematic. So first of all, check out the mind. Do you have these kind of defilements in the mind? Overcome these defilements first of all. And I will talk more about this later on. This is a very important part of the path. Establish the perception, for example, here of, this is a really good group of people being together. This is already a very beautiful way of thinking about everyone. And when you have that, you basically have a sense of metta towards everyone here. And that sense of metta is going to make the meditation far more easy when you have that. You're seeing the good in the people around you. These things cannot be overestimated, how powerful these things are to clear the mind out, to stop you from having anger and problems. There's always going to be irritations when we are together like this, a large group of people together. There's always going to be someone who does something which isn't quite right. And because of that, it's important to have this background of metta that you come back to at all times. Remember, the main thing is the basic attitude that people have. That is what really matters. If they make little mistakes, of course they make mistakes. Everyone here is a human being. Everyone is going to make mistakes. But then we can forgive that. We can let go of that because we can see the broader picture of what is going on. And this is so important right here. So establishing mindfulness means, first of all, overcoming these kind of defilements. But then establishing mindfulness also means to be less interested in the world. One of the main things that you will find is that the reason why we tend to think about things is because we are involved with the world. By the world, I mean our ordinary lives outside, our job, our family, our house, the world at large, basically the five senses, the karma, the five sense world. And you will notice this, how easy it is for the mind to go into these things, to think about these things in one way or another. And it happens to everyone. It happens, even if you are a monastic, these things will happen a lot, but even more so for lay people because of your involvement with that world. And so we need to remember to reflect on that world in the right way. What is the right way of thinking about the world? So that we can let go of that a little bit. Letting go of the five sense world is the most critical thing to be able to make the meditation work. And there is a number of things that we can do, but one of the main things is to remember that what really makes a difference in life, what actually builds the future, what makes us into the human beings we are, what really matters in the long run, what is going to stay with us when we die, all of that has to do with the spiritual path, not with the world of the five senses. Yeah, the world of the five senses is very kind of superficial. It only lasts for a short time, and then it's gone. And then all you have left, all you have to lean on when the world of the five senses is gone, is your spiritual qualities. This is what matters in life. This is what is important. The world of the five senses is hollow. It is insubstantial. Everything is going to disappear before you know it. You're going to die one day. This is one of the reasons why the death contemplation is so powerful, because it helps you to let go of the world of the five senses. And so if you want to think about your future, and a lot of the thinking in the realm of the five senses is really because we want to control the future. Yeah? This is why we think about that world. So if you think about your work, for example, well, it's because you have some problem. And if you want to resolve that problem, it's a way of trying to control that world. So when you come back to your work, you can resolve it and you can deal with it. So much of the thinking is about resolving problems in the world of the five senses. If there is a problem in your family, you will think about that because you want to find a solution. If there's a problem in your house, you think about that because you want to find a solution. So we reflect on these things to resolve that world. In other words, to secure the future in one way or another. That's why we think about these things. But remember that the world of the five senses is never, there is no such thing as security in that world. You resolve one problem and there's another problem behind it. And you have probably seen this in your life already. There is no final solution to be found in that world. There's just endlessly more problems. And so the only way to resolve that world of the five build up the world inside, because that is where the solution is to be found. So if you want to build up your future, if you want to create a future mind that is wholesome, if you want to create a mind that is resilient, that can deal with the problems of the world, if you want to create a future for yourself in whatever way, the only way to do that is the spiritual path. In the five sense world, there is no future, there's just problems. On the spiritual path, there is a real future. So when you do your meditation, remember, one of the kind of little mantras that I sometimes use to remind myself is that I say to myself, I have no future. I have no future. And that's kind of a beautiful way, because the moment you think, and what I mean by that is I have no future in the five sense world. That is not where my future lies. That world is out of control. That world is fundamentally problematic. My future, rather, lies in how I practice the spiritual path. Yeah? So give up that future in the five sense world and remember that the future is on the spiritual path. And what that means right now is watching the breath. That is what creates your future. What it means right now is having a mind of metta towards my fellows on this retreat. What it means is to have a mind of compassion, a mind of peace. What it means is all of these spiritual qualities. That is where the future lies. So if you want to build up a future, that is where it is built up. And if you see this properly, you will not think about the world anymore, because suddenly the world becomes irrelevant. The only reason why we think about the world is because we think we are creating the future by thinking about that world. But we're not creating the future by doing that. We are creating the future by being peaceful right here and now. So this is how to think about these things. And remember, some of these reflections that I'm talking about here are not reflections that bite straight away. It may take a while before they actually have an impact on you. And because of that, you have to think about these things again and again and again. And sometimes you will realize that sometimes you get like a little insight. Like, oh yeah, now I get it. And suddenly you become peaceful because of that. Because you understand what is going on. So allow these things to happen in this way. This is how you establish mindfulness, yeah? Right here, right now, as we practice this path. So these are some of the most important things to overcome. If you can overcome these two things, these are the two first of the five hindrances. The last three of the five hindrances are not as important. They will die away largely on their own. The first two are the most important ones. And so then you establish that mindfulness by letting go of these things. and allowing the mind to become peaceful in the present. And once the mindfulness is established, then you can really just, to a large extent, just relax and just be present and allow the process to happen. So this is this is kind of the general idea here. There's also this word parimukkang, which is an interesting word. What does it actually mean? And what you will find is that different people, they understand the word parimukkang in different ways. So the commentary defines parimukkang as nasagga. Nasagga is the tip of the nose, yeah? Nasa, nose. Agga, the tip. And so that's what the commentaries say. Is that true? Well, I don't think it's wrong. I don't. But in the way that parimukkang is found in the suttas, it doesn't really mean nasagga usually. Yeah, it just has a general idea of presence, it seems. So establishing mindfulness in front of you, I think that is good enough. It gives you an idea of what is happening. And as your meditation deepens, very often you will find that the focus is on the tip of the nose. But initially, you just relax with the breath. And I have always followed the teachings of Ajahn Brahmali, and he just says, just be aware of the breath, whether it's going in or out. That's really all you have to do. You don't need to focus it on any particular place of the body. Are you breathing in or are you breathing out? Just know that much. And that's really all that is required. And I usually follow that particular way of doing things. So this then is how we establish mindfulness in the present. Also all the things I was saying yesterday morning. But it's also, remember that mindfulness is also established in the long run. It is not possible if you come from a very... Wow, it's really happening. So sometimes it is impossible to really establish mindfulness if you have been living in a certain way. If you have been living unskillfully, or you haven't been doing the right things, you may find it becomes very hard. So even if you stay here for 9 days, it may not actually happen, maybe adequately to be able to watch the breath or whatever. And then what you have to do is you have to think more long-term. What are the things that establish mindfulness in the long run? And of course, that is precisely the Noble Eightfold Path. The first 6 factors of the Noble Eightfold Path, these are the things that give rise to mindfulness in the long run. So you have to go back and you have to ask yourself, how can I do the first 6 factors better? How can I improve my speech maybe? How can I improve the way I think about things? How can I have more right view? Right view is often underestimated. Right view is very important for the practice. Just right now, we're talking about establishing mindfulness. I was talking about the idea of overcoming the 5 senses. Knowing where the future is made. That is an aspect of right view, right there. You understand that the 5 senses are not really important, that they don't really matter, that they are a trap, that they are an imprisonment, that they are a kind of slavery. And so you withdraw your mind through that right view, and as you build up that right view, understanding these things in the right way, that enables you then to practice the meditation later on. So understanding these things in the right way, and understanding how they relate to you in your life, not just as a theoretical thing, but as an experience, what these things mean. Then as you do that, then these things start to come together. So right view is incredibly important. I should maybe say about right view that one of the, very often when we think about right view in Buddhism, we say that, if you believe in rebirth, you have right view. If you believe in karma, you have right view. And that is true, but that is also very superficial very often. Okay, yes, I believe in rebirth, but that is not enough just to believe in rebirth. You have to understand the consequences of believing in rebirth. You have to understand the consequences of believing in karma. What does it actually mean? And one thing that it means, if you understand it in the right way, is that the 5 sense world is not so interesting. That is one of the consequences of understanding rebirth and karma in the right way. Yeah, because these things are just too impermanent, too unreliable. They last for a short time, then you die, then you carry on. Time is short, death can come at any time. Why am I getting so involved in this five-sense world when my long-term future really depends on my spiritual qualities? So this is kind of what it gets to. Yeah, what matters if you understand rebirth and karma in the right way? Yeah? You become incredibly interested in the spiritual practice because you understand how problematic and how dangerous the world actually is. And that is where you start to withdraw from that world. So right view is incredibly important, and then it also comes into your meditation practice. The two supports for Satipatthana, according to the Satipatthana Samyutta, are Sila and Ujjukaditi. Yeah, Sila is the morality, and Ujjukaditi is a straight view, or the right view. So right view is a factor that enables your meditation practice, because it reminds you of what really is significant. And so it enables the mind to go to the breath and go to the meditation object. If you have wrong view, you may not have any interest in meditation, and that causes the problem. So right view and sila are the two factors here that kind of support this whole idea in the long run and also in the short run of meditation. So build up those qualities in the long run, and as you do that, you should find that every time you come on a meditation retreat, gradually, the mind becomes more clear. Gradually, the mindfulness becomes established. I have certainly seen that in my own life, how gradually things become established. Yeah, over time, slowly it happens. And it's just an automatic process that comes from practicing the Noble Eightfold Path. Parimukkhang satting upatapetva is establishing mindfulness. And then, once mindfulness is established, that is when the meditation happens. And this is what I was saying yesterday as well, is that meditation happens after mindfulness is established, not before. And this is why we should not go to the breath straight away. Going to the breath straight away means that you are first watching the breath and then trying to establish mindfulness. But no, that is not how the meditation works. And this is why translating Satipatthana as the foundation of mindfulness is very misleading, because that gives you the idea that you watch the breath, then you become mindful. But actually it's the other way around. First of all, establish mindfulness, then watch the breath, then do the meditation. And so this is, these little things matter. All right. So then, once the mindfulness is established, just mindful, you breathe in, mindful, you breathe out. Yeah, so now the meditation happens, and as I always like to do when I teach this sutta, little word just there is very interesting. Yeah, satova va eva is this little Pali word, and I don't think it is random or it is by accident that it is there. In this case, it may very well mean something. And the idea of this word eva, it often just means just. Yeah, this is all you have to do, is to be mindful. And of course, what that means again is this idea that we don't have to do anything. The things that we have to do is maybe a little bit of activity beforehand, to think in the right way, to remind yourself of what a wonderful thing it is to be able to be in a place like this, to overcome the interest in the world, a little bit of right reflection to begin with, just to remind yourself. But once the mindfulness is established, there's nothing more to be done. Now you can relax. Now you allow the awareness to actually do the work for you. Because awareness is very powerful, and awareness has that power to take you into the meditation automatically. So you just stay back, you just kind of stand back, and you allow things to happen. And as you observe things with that Teflon mind, it's as if they lose their grip on your mind more and more and more. You become more and more peaceful. Things fade away, and gradually the path kind of just opens up by itself. Satova, just mindful. No activity is really required at this point. Mindful, you breathe in. Mindful, you breathe out. Okay, so let us come now to the beginning of the actual 16 steps. So the Anapanasati Sutta is divided into 16 steps, and there's 4 times 4, and each group of 4 is related to the Satipatthana Sutta. So in the Satipatthana Sutta, you have the 4 Satipatthanas, Kaya, Vedana, Chitta, and Dhamma. And the first 4 here are equivalent to the Kaya Nupassana, the next 4 to the Vedana Nupassana, the third to the Chitta Nupassana, and the last word to the Dhamma Nupassana. So we're going to look at the first 4 first of all. And this is how the Buddha explains Kaya Nupassana from the perspective of the breath meditation, Anapanasati. So let's just read through it first of all, and then we'll discuss it in a second. So breathing in heavily, they know I am breathing in heavily. Breathing out heavily, they know I am breathing out heavily. Breathing in lightly, they know I am breathing in lightly. Breathing out lightly, they know I am breathing out lightly. They practice like this. I will breathe in experiencing the whole body. They practice like this. I will breathe out experiencing the whole body. They practice like this. I will breathe in stilling the physical process. They practice like this. I will breathe out stilling the physical process. So this is the general idea. And what you can see here, first of all, just to talk all of this really is about the breath, as far as I can tell. You may wonder why it says experiencing the whole body, while it says stilling the physical process. But it is Anapanasati, it is mindfulness of breathing meditation. And towards the very end of the sutta, it's not actually included in what I have here, it says that the body, or the breath, is one body among bodies. Yeah? So the breath is like a kind of body. Body here means a group of phenomena, and the breath forms a group of phenomena. And so all of this here, what we're seeing here, is all about the breath, even though I'll discuss this a little bit more later on, how to think about these things. But essentially it's all about the breath. And what we are seeing here is a process, a particular way by which our awareness expands and the mind is becoming more peaceful. But this is really what this process is about. The expansion of awareness and the more peace in the mind. And so it is a pleasant, very pleasant process. And so all of these things are like the marks by which we know whether the process is working or not. Are we becoming peaceful? Is it pleasant, what we are observing? Is our mindfulness expanding and becoming more clear? And if we see this is happening, we know it is heading in the right direction. Yeah? It is a certain particular process in this way. This is what this overall idea here that is happening behind here. So let's go back to the beginning. Breathing in heavily. Heavily is diga in Pali. Usually means long. Yeah? So in the Pali idiom, they use the long breath. Heavy here is just, this is just Bhante Sujato's ideas for what he feels is the appropriate English expression for this. Every language has their own idiom, their own way of speaking, and this is kind of the way we often talk about the breath in English. So you breathe in heavily, and when you breathe in heavily, you know I breathe in heavily. Breathing out heavily, you know you're breathing out heavily. But sometimes, especially sometimes when you kind of start to calm down, the breath becomes shorter. Because as you calm down, you don't need as much oxygen. Yeah? So the breath can become shorter sometimes. So as the process goes, it goes from the longer breath to the shorter breath. Less oxygen is required because you're calming down. And so then when you're breathing in short, you know that you're breathing in short. When you breathe out short, you know that you're breathing out short. But the main point here is not the length of the breath. That is not really the point. The point is the awareness, that you know what is going on. You know if the breath is long, you know that the breath is short. It doesn't matter what the breath is. We shouldn't make the breath long or short. I know there are some meditation techniques where they actually control the breath. They make it long and short. But to me, this is counter to the way that meditation is supposed to work. The way it is supposed to work, and we'll see that in the next sutta we're going to look at, is it is an automatic process. It's not about what we do. It is about the quality of our awareness. That is what matters. So the fact that the breath is long or short is actually quite irrelevant. The reason why it is mentioned here is simply to show that the process usually goes from long to short. As you calm down, the breath becomes shorter. And it gives you an idea that you're supposed to be aware of every breath, as you breathe in and as you breathe out. If you look at the Visuddhimagga will tell you that you can do things like counting the breath. This is one of the techniques you find in the Visuddhimagga. And that may be useful for some people, because it gives a little bit more effort in the mind. You're trying a little bit harder, so it helps you a little bit. But ideally, you just want to be aware without counting, because usually counting means that perhaps you're using a little bit too much effort. That can sometimes be a little bit unpleasant if you do it that way. So you know that the breath is going in and out. You know roughly the quality of the breath. Is it long or short? This is kind of the beginning of this. And then as we do this, you can already start to see the calming down process from long to short. And then the next one, now we have the knowledge. Now the next one is you train to experience the whole body. You will notice it goes from knowledge to training. So why does it move from knowledge to training? Why is it that you know in the beginning and now you train? What does this actually imply? And I think the implication here is that the knowledge is automatic. If you have established mindfulness already, you will automatically know whether the breath is long or short. This comes with mindfulness. You don't have to, it doesn't take a long time. It's not something that you have to practice very hard with or anything like that. It is basically automatic. But to be able to experience the whole body, as it says here, sabbakaya patisangvedi, to be able to do that, it is not automatic. It is not enough to have ordinary mindfulness. The mindfulness needs to be sharpened. And so it takes time. And because it takes time, it is said, you train. You keep on practicing. You keep on being aware. It doesn't mean you do anything. There's nothing that you have to do. You just have to keep on going. And after a while, you start experiencing sabbakaya. So what does sabbakaya mean? Kaya is very often, in the Pali, is often said, means like the body. But remember that the root meaning of kaya is not really body. The root meaning of kaya is like a assembly of things, a conglomeration of things, a group of phenomena coming together. That's really what kaya means, like a heap of stuff. That's kind of the colloquial term for kaya. Heap of stuff, so if you kind of want to know what it means, that's a good one. Makes it simple and straightforward. And the heap of stuff can be different things. And sometimes the heap of stuff means like the physical body. And what is interesting in the Pali, however, is that even when it means the physical body, like for example, you go to the 31 parts of the body, in the Satipatthana Sutta, even then it doesn't mean just the body, it means specifically the living body. Because the dead body is the sarira. The sarira is like the relics and the dead body, but the living body is always called the kaya. So the mind is always implied when we talk about kaya. So there's always like the savinya ke kaya is the body with its consciousness. These things always come together in this particular way. And so when we talk about body, this word body, we have to be very careful to understand it in the right way. Because if we misunderstand it as being just the physical body, there are some parts of the path that become very difficult to understand. Because, for example, you touch the deathless, kayena, with the body. What does that mean? How can you touch the deathless with the body? You experience the atta vimokkha. The atta vimokkha are things like the immaterial attainments with the body. It doesn't make any sense if you think of it as a physical body. However, it does make sense when we think about this as a group of phenomena. You have the Sakkaya Ditthi. Sakkaya Ditthi is the view of a personality or an existing person. Yeah, the body, the physical body, is only a small part of that. Most of it is mental. Again, it must be more than body. There's lots of examples in the sutras where kaya, conglomeration of phenomena. And so this is why, in this particular context, sabba kaya patisangvedi, it is not obvious that it must mean the physical body. Yeah, in some traditions that do interpret in that way, but it's far from obvious. And in this context, to me, it is actually quite obvious that it must mean the breath, because we are doing anapanasati. Yeah, we're not doing body contemplation, we're doing God contemplation in the roundabout way, but the focus is anapanasati. And so here, I say, many people would agree with that. The commentaries agree with that. Yeah, the commentaries say it means the breath. The monks I respect the most, they say it means the breath. No prizes for guessing who that is, but so this is my understanding. However, if you think it means the whole physical body and you practice in that way, it may still work. I'm not saying it doesn't work that way. I'm just saying that I think it is most likely to mean the breath. So what does it mean, experiencing the whole body? Sabbakaya patisangvedi. And obviously what it means seeing the whole breath. Right? It means that your mindfulness is starting to expand. Instead of just being aware of the breath being long or short or having a basic awareness of the breath, your ability to be aware of everything that is happening is increasing because your mindfulness is sharpening. There's less other things going on in your mind. You are standing back. The worldly things are starting to disappear completely. All that is left is a fairly powerful kind of mindfulness. Sabba kaya patisangvedi. And already at this point, the meditation is becoming already quite pleasant, right? Because now all you have pretty much is the breath, and there's nothing much else going on. And that is already a very pleasant abiding. You don't have to go very far here to really enjoy the practice. And I would really recommend you to pay attention to the pleasure of this path, to notice how delightful it is, because the more you understand the delight of meditation, even the fairly superficial delights of just having an expanded awareness, even that much, it means that your mind will incline towards meditation when you see that. So notice these things, make a lot out of them, really build up that confidence in meditation, because we will lose it again very quickly. So the more powerful the impact is on the mind right now, the more easy it is to remember these things in the future. When is it easy to remember anything? When the 5 hindrances are low. That's when you remember things. That's when you make a big impact on the mind, and also when you remember it easily in the future. So that is the watching the whole breath. And then the next step, which is the last one here, is the stilling the physical process. And this is the kaya sankaram pasambati. And again, the word kaya, kaya sankara. What does sankara mean in this particular context? The other word sankara is a very kind of broad term. It means a number of different things in the sutras. But very often it has an idea of movement about it. Sankara is the will in the sutras. The fourth of the 5 khandhas, the Sankara Khandha, is the will, it is the intention, it is the volition of the mind, it is the doer within that is the Sankara. And of course the doer is always the movement. It is like a force inside of us that makes things happen. It's the thing that holds on to things. All of these things are the Sankara, the activity of the mind. So when we talk here about Kaya Sankarang Pasambati, we're talking about the movement of the body, calming down. So here he says the physical process is calming down. That is basically right. The physical process is calming down. Now in the suttas, you will find that the kaya sankhara is also specifically defined as the breath. And the reason why it is called kaya sankhara, I think it is here because most of what is left, most of the body is already fading away. Most of what remains at this point is the breath. So the breath is the main thing that we calm down. But of course, when you calm down the breath, you're also calming down the rest of the body. All of these things come together. They're one part and parcel of the same thing. So the translation, calming down the physical process, I think it's a good translation. You could say calming down the breath, that would also be perfectly fine. Any of these translations will be okay. Calming down the bodily volition, the will related to the body. Maybe not as good, because it kind of implies that verbal volition might be okay, but that of course is not okay. So physical process calming down is a good one. And remember again, when we come to this particular point, it is automatic. You don't make the breath calm down. Your job is just to be aware. You are a passenger on the ride, and you just notice that the breath is calming down. You think, okay, breath is calming down. Okay, this means it is heading in the right direction. You don't do this. It happens to you. You are a passenger on the train. You are looking out of the window. When you are a passenger on the train, you have no say about the scenery outside. The scenery will be whatever it is. But the nature of the scenery is to change in this way if you are a passive observer. That is what the sutta is saying. So this is the kaya nupassana, the contemplation of the body. And this is what is meant in the Anapanasati Sutta, and how it compares what you find in the Satipatthana Sutta. So one of the interesting points here, one of the things I mentioned yesterday, is that the main aspect in the kaya nupassana of the Satipatthana Sutta is the 31 parts of the body. Right? That is the main thing. The second most important is the 4 elements, and the last one, the third most important, is the cemetery contemplations. But the most important one is the 31 parts of the body. So how does this relate to the mindfulness of breathing? There must be some relationship, right? Because the two are said to kind of work together. So what is the relationship between the 31 parts of the body and the breath meditation? And the idea here is that we are gradually letting go of the 5 sense world. We're gradually letting go of the body. As things calm down, as you become aware of the breath more and more, the 5 senses are gradually disappearing. And sometimes it can be hard to let go of the 5 senses. And so the 31 parts of the body is a way to help us overcome the 5 sense world and attachment to that world. If the body is just 31 parts, lungs, spleen, heart, and these kind of things, it makes the body less interesting. And when the body is less interesting, the whole 5 sense world becomes less interesting as a consequence. And so this is how the two connect to each other. And this is why sometimes it can be useful to do some of the asubha kamatan, the asubha sanya, in connection with the mindfulness of breathing. Maybe you can start out with that a little bit, just to kind of overcome any attachment to the body, and then you can do the watching the breath afterwards. This is depending on how profound your meditation is, depending on where you feel stuck in your meditation. This is really up to everyone individually to decide. But this is how they are connected with each other. 4 elements, the same kind of thing. The 4 elements, it takes away the interest in the body. Because if this body is just 4 elements, it arises out of the ground, arises out of the elements in the world at large. And when you die, it goes back to the elements again. It's just a temporary coming together of the 4 elements. That's all you are, and then it disappears again. How can you attach to the body when that is the case? And of course, the cemetery contemplation, a similar kind of thing. again, it makes the body not very interesting when you understand the nature of this body. And so the 31 parts of the body is like understanding that's the asubha, seeing the body as not beautiful. The cemetery contemplation is more like anicca, understanding the impermanence of the body, how it is always changing. And the 4 elements is almost like the anatta way of thinking about the body. There's nothing self in this, they're just elements coming together for a while. And all of these contemplations help you can support the idea of the mindfulness of breathing. So that is how I understand these things as coming together in this particular way. So that is the idea of the kaya nupassana for you according to the mindfulness of breathing. And this is how it all starts out and how we go. And if you can do even this much, and if you are able to fulfill these first 4 factors of mindfulness of breathing, great, it is wonderful. You already have benefited a lot from mindfulness of breathing. Ideally, we want to take it further than this. Ideally, you want to experience some of the joys, some of the really beautiful, powerful qualities of the path. Many of you have no doubt experienced some of these things already. And in the next session, we're going to talk more about the joys and the very beautiful qualities that arise out of doing this mindfulness of breathing in the right way. In the meantime, please carry on enjoying yourself. Have a nice lunch later on and enjoy the practice. And we will see you back again here in this afternoon at 4 o'clock. And in the meantime, there is some interviews and things. Please, I'm not sure exactly where to go for the interview, so if someone could please pick me up at my room or something, that'd be great.